Thanks for staying with NDTV. You're watching the Tuesday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the globe. US President Donald Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin failed to reach a breakthrough on a Ukraine ceasefire during a 2-hour phone call Monday. Now, Trump struck an optimistic note, saying Kiev and Moscow will immediately begin negotiations, while Putin's more guarded comments signaled he hadn't softened his maximalistic demand so far. Here's what both the leaders had to say.
Did you ask President Putin to meet with you?
About what?
About Ukraine.
Yeah, of course I did. I talked to him about it. I said, when are we going to end this, Vladimir? I know him for a long time now. I said, when are we going to end this bloodshed, this bloodbath? It's a bloodbath. And I do believe he wants to end it. You know, when I made the call, I told the people last night, I spoke to the heads of the different countries. But I said to them, we got to get going. And I did say also, if I thought that you couldn't do it, I'd step away, because what are you going to do? We don't have boots on the ground. We wouldn't have boots on the ground. But we do have a big stake.
States set forth his position regarding the cessation of hostilities, and the truth on my behalf that Russia also wants a peaceful resolution of the Ukraine crisis.
Meanwhile, my colleague Nina gets you this ground report straight from Washington, D.C. Take a look.
Well, US President Trump sounding extremely optimistic on the back of his phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. I don't think that President Trump can afford at this point in time not to sound like there's some forward momentum. He said last week that nothing would happen until he and President Putin had spoken. So in the very narrow scheme of things, that's a mini triumph. It's a mini victory. But it's also possible that President Trump believes that by injecting the right tone, it gives the lack of progress a kind of a shiny wrapper on a rather disappointing parcel, since there has been no movement. We know that there's been no progress. There is no ceasefire. Nothing's really changed, except that President Putin and President Trump have spoken. President Trump referenced on the back of that phone call with President Putin a possible trade angle. And we know that trade and investment deals are very much President Trump's thing, which, given the fact that he is capable of injecting a degree of chaos into trading relationships with partners, it does seem counterintuitive. But given his track record of cutting deals, especially if you look at his latest trip to the Middle East and the deals that he's been cutting with Gulf states, it's certainly a language he speaks, the language of trade and investment, and a number of foreign governments are lining up to offer President Trump deals in the hope of better preferential treatment.
Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal held productive discussions with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, focusing on expediting the first tranche of the India-U.S. bilateral trade agreement. Now, Mr. Goyal shared an image of the two leaders shaking hands, stating good discussions with Secretary Howard Lutnick towards expediting the first tranche of India-U.S. bilateral trade agreement. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu allowed minimal aid to enter Gaza Monday, saying that he had to prevent mass starvation for practical and diplomatic reasons. Now, Netanyahu said Israel will take full control of Gaza, the besieged enclave, while acknowledging that the move to let aid through was motivated by mounting international pressure from allies. The UK, France and Canada, in fact, threatened sanctions and also demanded Israel stop its military actions, while US President Donald Trump's administration has also launched a behind-the-scenes pressure campaign, as per the Washington Post's latest updates. The leaders of Canada, Britain and France on Monday threatened actions against Israel if it does not stop a renewed military offensive in Gaza and lift aid restrictions as well. Now, this piles further pressure on PM Benjamin Netanyahu. The Israeli military, meanwhile, announced the start of a new operation on Friday, and Mr. Netanyahu said earlier on Monday that the country would take control of the whole of Gaza Strip. International experts, meanwhile, have already warned of looming famine. Here's more.
As the UN warns of a looming famine in Gaza, Canada, Britain and France have issued a joint statement threatening action against Israel if it does not stop the renewed offensive in Gaza and lift the restrictions on the movement of aid in Gaza. The statement by the three leaders of these countries says that it is unacceptable and also a breach of international humanitarian laws that Israel has blocked the movement of aid into Gaza, and it is evident in the shocking visuals coming in from Gaza that is showing the population dying of starvation. It has also been said that starvation is being used as a tool by Israel against the people in Gaza. Meanwhile, the joint statement says that any new settlements in West Bank are also unacceptable to them, and this comes at a time when Benjamin Netanyahu has said that they want to take over the whole of Gaza. Now, this is also leading up to the agenda firming for the G7 summit that is going to be held in Canada in the province of Alberta next month. Canada wants to put peace in Gaza and Ukraine as one of the top agendas in the G7 summit, and the other agenda is going to be delinking or reducing the reliance or integration of their economies with the United States.
And staying with the Middle East, viewers, where Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has in fact said his country would keep enriching uranium with or without a deal with world powers despite ongoing negotiations over its nuclear program. Now, for perspective, Iran currently enriches uranium to 60%. It's far above the 3.67% limit set in the 2015 deal, but also below the 90% needed for a nuclear warhead. Tehran maintains its nuclear ambitions are for civilian purposes only and entirely peaceful. It also insists its right to continue enriching uranium for peaceful purposes is quote-unquote non-negotiable. Meanwhile, we get you what the Foreign Ministry spokesperson said on this issue.
موضوع غنیسازی به عنوان بخشی از چرخه طبیعی صنعت هسته‌ای جمهوری اسلامی ایران به هیچ عنوان قابل مذاکره نیست. غنیسازی یک فناوری است، یک نیاز هست برای اطمینان از اینکه صنعت هسته‌ای ایران بدون وقفه به کار خودش ادامه خواهد داد و نتیجه دهه‌ها زحمت و تلاش و خون دانشمندان هسته‌ای ما.
China has decided to fast-track work on a major dam in Pakistan. Now, this comes just weeks after India suspended the Indus Water Treaty following the deadly terror attack in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April, which killed 26 innocent civilians. According to a report by the South China Morning Post or the SCMP, the dam project is seen as a flagship effort by Pakistan and is being built with Chinese help. Amid the major crackdown on immigrants, the Donald Trump administration targeted travel agents in India who are in fact known for facilitating illegal immigration to the United States. Washington has said that it is imposing visa restrictions on owners, executives, and even senior officials of travel agencies in India for knowingly facilitating illegal immigration to the United States. The State's Department said the owners, executives, and the senior officials of such travel agencies based and operating in India will face severe visa restrictions so that the smuggling networks can be completely and entirely cut off. Now, the statement said that this visa restriction policy is global and will be applicable to even those who qualify for the visa waiver program. The United States on Monday sent 68 immigrants from Honduras to Colombia back to their countries, the first government-funded flight of what the Trump administration is calling voluntary deportations. In the northern Honduran city of San Pedro Sula, 38 Hondurans, including 19 children in fact, disembarked from the charter flight carrying $1,000 worth debit cards from the U.S. government and the offer to one day to be allowed to in fact apply for legal entry back into the United States. Meanwhile, experts believe the self-deportation offer will only appeal to a small portion of migrants already considering returning, but unlikely to spur high demand. Here's more.
No creo que sean miles de personas que apliquen a ese programa por volumen, pero sí vamos a tener bastantes casos y lo que nos compete es que vengan pues de manera ordenada, con vuelos charter, que tengamos los manifiestos con anterioridad para que así no haya ningún retraso y podamos apoyarles en todo lo que ellos requieren a su llegada al país.
The UK and European Union on Monday struck a landmark deal to in fact remove some post-Brexit trade barriers and to bolster cooperation on security and defence. Now this comes as they reduce their reliance on an unpredictable Washington under Donald Trump. The agreement is a significant reset for the two allies. The agreement is also designed to help the two sides work more closely together after the Trump administration signalled it was, in fact, reducing its commitment to European defence and imposed global tariffs. Meanwhile, here's what Keir Starmer said of this agreement.
Today we have struck this landmark deal with the EU, a new partnership between an independent Britain and our allies in Europe. This is the first UK-EU summit. It marks a new era in our relationship. And this deal is a win-win. It delivers what the British public voted for last year. It gives us unprecedented access to the EU market, the best of any country outside of the EU or EFTA, all while sticking to the red lines in our manifesto about not rejoining the single market, the customs union, and no return to freedom of movement.
Now, days before South Africa's president meets with US President Donald Trump at the White House later this week, Afrikaner farmers at the center of an extraordinary new US refugee policy roamed a memorial to farm attacks in their country's agricultural heartland, some touching the names of the dead, both black and white in this case. In Bothawil, meanwhile, where thousands of farmers gathered for a lively agricultural fair with everything from grains to guns on display, even some conservative white African groups debunked the Trump administration's genocide and land seizure claims that led it to, in fact, cut all financial aid to South Africa. This bustling scene, which you witness on your screens, viewers, was business as usual with milkshakes and burgers and even toe-headed children pulled in wagons. Here's more.
We're not interested in going anywhere. The thing we want to do is be part of this country, produce enough healthy food, by doing so grow the economy, providing jobs, empowering people. That's part of our business, and we would like to see more inclusive growth in our business. But we need some certainty, and one of those certainties is rural safety.
Donald Trump, alongside his wife Melania, on Monday signed the Take It Down Act. It's a measure the First Lady helped usher through Congress to set in stricter penalties for the distribution of non-consensual intimate imagery online, often referred to by the moniker revenge porn. In March, Melania Trump used her first public appearance since resuming the role of the First Lady to travel to Capitol Hill to lobby House members, in fact, to pass the bill following its approval by the U.S. Senate. Here's what she said.
It's my honor to officially sign the Take It Down Act into law. It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place. This will be the first ever federal law to combat the distribution of explicit, imaginary, posted without subjects' consent. They take horrible pictures, and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures, and they post it without consent or anything else. And very importantly, this includes for forgeries generated by artificial intelligence known as deepfakes. We've all heard about deepfakes.
And for 2 days after Israeli-American soldier Eden Alexander was in fact released from 19 months of captivity from Gaza, he couldn't eat anything. That's correct. Despite periods of near starvation during his captivity, in fact, Alexander told his parents he just didn't have an appetite. Then his mother, Ye Alexander, put a burger and fries in front of him, and Eden dove in. It was one of many dizzying surprises his family has experienced since learning 8 days ago that he would be freed after more than a year and a half in captivity in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, listen into Eden's father and what he had to say.
He talks a lot. First, he talked about the October 7th, the date
just went by the chronological order of things. First, what happened on October 7, then what happened at the first days in the tunnels, then what happened when he was moved between the locations, moved around with other hostages, and the last phase of the captivity, which is the past 7 months. He was held at the same location.
On the first anniversary of his inauguration, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te delivered a speech at the presidential office in Taipei on Tuesday. Now, Lai underlined Taiwan's domestic achievements, trade ambitions, and firm stance on cross-strait relations with China during a speech to mark his first year in office. Addressing growing tensions with Beijing, Lai reaffirmed Taipei's willingness to seek peaceful engagement. Here's more from what Lai said. Meanwhile, moving on, a car plowed through pedestrians at an intersection in Taiwan, killing 3 people, including 2 12-year-old schoolgirls. According to media reports, the 78-year-old driver was in a coma after the Monday afternoon crash. Meanwhile, police said the driver went through the intersection when the traffic lights were red in all directions, Taiwan's central news agency reported. Moreover, the car sideswept 3 scooters and a bicycle and kept going until running into a concrete divider in the middle of the street. With that, it's time to dip into a short break. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching the World Report on NDTV World. On to some business news now, where China has cut benchmark lending rates for the first time, in fact, since October last year on Tuesday, while major state banks lowered deposit rates as authorities continue to ease monetary policy to help buffer the economy from the impact of the Sino-US trade war. The widely expected rate cuts are aimed at stimulating consumption and loan growth. This as the world's #2 economy softens while still protecting commercial lenders' shrinking profit margins. Over in the West, the U.S. Department of Justice has opened a probe into a recent breach at the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Coinbase Global. Now, the company last week said it received an email from an unknown threat actor on the 11th of May, claiming to have information about certain customer accounts as well as international documents. It expects a hit of $180 million to the $400 million mark from the cyber attack. According to reports, sportswear retailer or giant Nike is laying off some of its employees in its technology division. The company will shift some of those work to third-party vendors. It is not immediately clear how many people work in Nike's technology department. Shares of Chinese electric vehicle battery giant CATL or CATL traded as much as 18.4% above the subscription price on Tuesday. Now, this comes after the company raised $4.6 billion in its Hong Kong listing, the largest ever in the world this year. In fact, now CATL shares have reached 311 Hong Kong dollars each in Hong Kong after the firm sold its shares at 263 Hong Kong dollars apiece in the listing. Meanwhile, Asian markets rose on Tuesday as investor sentiment returned following the previous day's US rating fueled losses, with sentiments also boosted after China cut interest rates to historic lows. This rally tracked advances on Wall Street, where the initial sell-off sparked by Moody's removal of Washington's AAA grade soon gave way to a pushback into beaten-down equities amid hopes about US trade talks. The tech giant Microsoft will soon open new rival AI models made by Elon Musk's xAI Meta platforms, and even European startups Mistral and Black Forest Labs hosted in its own data centers, and also unveiled a new artificial intelligence tool, in fact designed to complete software coding tasks on its own. These announcements underscored the changing nature of Microsoft's relationship with ChatGPT creator OpenAI, which the company has backed and which announced a direct competing product only last week. American director Wes Anderson has mocked Donald Trump's plan to impose severe tariffs on foreign-made films, suggesting it would mostly financially hit filmmakers like him and be unworkable in practice. Here's what he said.
I thought you were going to say he was giving us a plug or something. I was like, did Trump see it? The tariff, the tariff is fascinating because the 100% tariff, I never heard of a 100% tariff before. I'm not an expert in that area of economics, but I feel that means he's saying he's going to take all the money. And then what do we get? So it's complicated to me. I also think, does it mean he's good at, can you hold up the movie in customs? I feel it doesn't ship that way. So I just don't know. I'm not sure. I want to know the details first. So I'll hold off on my official answer.
John Krasinski and Natalie Portman brought the Fountain of Youth to New York on Monday for the film's world premiere. Now, in the film, the pair partners on a global heist to look for the mythological place. Krasinski said when he was asked by director Guy Ritchie to be in the film, it was an easy yes. American filmmaker Spike Lee returned to the Cannes Film Festival Monday alongside Denzel Washington, rapper A$AP Rocky and Jeffrey Wright, with the premiere of the crime thriller Highest to Lowest. Now, screening out of competition at the 78th Cannes Film Festival, the movie is an English-language reinterpretation of Akira Kurosawa's 1963 Japanese film High and Low, itself loosely based on the 1959 novel The King's Ransom by Ed McBain originally. Now, after its festival appearance, the film will be released theatrically by A24 before being made available on Apple TV+. Well, it's a wrap on this Tuesday edition of the World Report. See you tomorrow.